Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. You know what? Watcher normally has the little thing here, but because he is gone, I didn't put it in. My apologies. Mea culpa, mea culpa. Joe, how you doing, brother?
You know what? I'm not bad. I'm not bad. It's a fine Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. See, I lost a whole day in the middle of that.
I
And
know the feeling.
let me prevent us from getting a YouTube strike. Uh, it's a fine day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and we are enjoying the weather. It's really warm this week, so that's cool. But we are getting ready for all of the July events and happenings we have going on. Rumor has it I'll be driving a fire truck in a parade in just a couple of days. So I may
Very
not be
cool.
able to make Friday's show. I got to find out when that parade is and when I got to leave here and all that stuff. But we will see.
That's a good opportunity to just say we may or may not be doing a Friday show. It depends on participation and also how things are going here, because that would be the evening of the 4th here, and we are debating on what activities we'll be doing. And since we're off, we may end up out of the house, and if that's the case, then I wouldn't be able to do the show. So we will let you know via X. Our accounts on X, whether the show is going on. If Joe's available and I'm available, we will do the show. And hopefully our boy Watcher, who was, in fairness, Watcher got up early. He felt like shit, and he still did all the kind of housekeeping stuff that he normally does with the show to get us ready. So shout out to Watcher. Hope he feels better. He's doing the Lord's work there, raising chickens and children. So it's
in all honesty, he does sound like a dead guy who's still walking. So
I know, right? He's like, I need to take a shower and go back to bed. Sorry, guys. I was like, dude, why are you even here? All right. So today we're talking. So this is episode 535. We're talking Middle East, North Africa developments and Eastern European happenings. So that'll focus on both the Russia-Ukraine war, but also, which, by the way, is having a heat-up moment right now. And there are some other things happening that will cause the NAFO bros to lose their minds. And then also the Middle East, North Africa is always a really touchy area. So we're looking for some things that might happen there. As you know, instability is really the thing that causes problems a lot of times, and it's that kind of like the layered of issues that causes something to explode, and something explodes on the other side of the world, and all of a sudden America finds itself, with a new set of protesters or a new set of people wanting to conduct some sort of terrorist operations on American soil. So that's why we talk about this stuff. Looking at the chat, man, you guys are nicely waking up nicely. Awesome. I tell you, Hunch Dirty Roofer, you're gonna give Loki LARP the ticks because you're not a member, and he doesn't like that. All right.
Yeah, all the memberships that Hunch has given out, he doesn't have one.
Have one, I know, right? There's some irony to that. Oh boy.
By the way, I have the new RMR from our homie at Brushbeater for testing and evaluation. So,
oh yeah,
it arrived late last night, so I will be reporting on that later.
Now, okay, remind us, which one is that? That's not the other one. That's a new one, right?
Yeah, it's the new one for the pistol RMR size. It's not available yet on the website. So I have the mini red dot on a rifle, but I just got the RMR to put on a pistol, and we're going to try it out. So,
I don't have any RMRs on any of my pistols because all of my pistols were made pre sight cutout days. So I think I'm going to need to buy a new pistol when I get the opportunity, just so I can kind of get that drip.
Yeah, I just took a plate off of one to put a sight on. So,
Well,
yeah, very
I
good that they all come that way now. So,
I've shot the what is it, M11 or no, M17. I've shot the M17 several times now, and I like it. I really like the way it shoots and everything like that. But I'm afraid that I'm going to get some sort of bad name as a SIG fanboy if I get one, just because, like, oh, you're gonna, like, you get one, you'll shoot at the bad guys, then drop it, and then your pistol will shoot you. So kind of self-conscious about that. Yeah, right. This actually is my, if I don't get the SIG, this is my my other one to go to. I think would be the Glock 19X. I am a longtime fan of the Glock 19. I picked that up way back in the 90s, I guess. The Glock 19 that I have is a 90s era one, and it shot like a dream the first time out. It's so funny, Joe. My two favorite pistols to shoot is the Glock 19 and the CZ75. Like,
yeah,
the CZ75 has shot so well for me, and I mean, like, at range too. Like, I've shot steel at 100 meters with a CZ75. Now I'm not very good at hitting it, but I've hit it. Multiple hits with one magazine, so I felt like I was at least doing fairly well. You've been to Knob Creek, right?
yeah.
So Knob Creek, that's like my home range. So, like, even when they didn't have the machine gun shoots, they would have cars maybe left over from the machine gun shoot, or maybe something they'd put out there a couple months before, and then it would just get shot up at the machine gun shoot. So they had a car all the way at the end. It's kind of like a draw, right? Like a little, like like a little box canyon type deal. Well, like, it was all the way to the back, and I think that's about 230 meters or whatever, yards, whatever. And me and my buddy were playing horse, right, with pistols, and he was a pretty good shot, and I was like, I got to do something that he might not be able to do. So I took, and you got 3 shots to make your kind of shot, right? So before you got your letter, and so I was able to hit a car door at 230 meters because it was all the way at the back, and he wasn't able to do that. That won me the match. That was pretty impressive. I mean, I was like shooting at like this kind of an elevation, to get out there. So I'd never shot long range with pistol before, so it was pretty fun.
Well, I see that Low Key LARP and Hunch are having a fight of how who can
oh shit, Hunch!
the most subscriptions possible.
Low Key LARP gifted 5 subs over on Rumble, and then Hunch jumps in and goes over the top, bam, with 10 subs, gifted subs. Man, you guys, what a blessing you guys are. I appreciate the fact that you guys are supporting the channel. Low Key is awesome. That is a fact. But let me be honest with you guys. Whether you give money or not, you guys are consistently one of the bright spots of my week is hanging out. Let me tell you, Joe, and I don't know how you feel, right? I know that you, like all of us, right, in this profession, we have our ups and downs, right? Sometimes we have professional successes, and other times we have frustrating days, right? Or frustrating months sometimes, right? And what I've been kind of going through in my kind of stuff. So I don't want to belabor that point here on air, but literally days when I was like, I don't know if I want to do the show today. Like, just, rough day. Literally the thing that kind of puts me over the top to do the show is hanging out with the chat. So I tell you what, chat, I just had an idea because of this. Not today, but we will do this at some point. And we could either do it as a separate show, or we could do it as just a replacement for the regular show. What we may do is have zero pre-prepared content and just chat with the chat, and let you guys take us where we go that day. And if you guys have questions, there's certain things that I'm not going to talk about live on here, but there are other things that I'd be more than happy to talk about. So, yeah, I think that would be Joe. I think that'd be a fun show. Honestly,
it would be a fun show. It would. Watching the chat, there's a comment about 10 millimeter. Let me just point out that the 1 centimeter pistol, because we don't call things 10 millimeter, we call them 1 centimeter. But the 1 centimeter community is, I've never seen more guys than in Montana carry the 10 millimeter. And when I ask around, the answer is bears, bro. Bears.
Well, Joe, if the pistol caliber carbine, I like it because ultimately what it is a semi-automatic submachine gun. And, as a kid, every kid loves submachine guns, right? Because they look cool, right? Tell me, Joe, that your favorite gun as a little kid wasn't the fucking MP40 Schmeiser, machine pistol from World War II. I mean,
mine was the Thompson submachine gun, but yes.
Well, I like that too, but I gravitated more to the things that the more World War II modern type stuff, right? And then I went over I went through this weird phase in high school where I thought the Swedish K was like the coolest thing ever, which it was never really that cool. It just had drip, right?
Yeah,
but yeah. So I think
I don't know. The PPSH 41 had its own
100%
appeal. That's a pretty sweet little gun.
Absolutely. In the what is it, the Suomi or whatever, the Finnish one that could take those magazines. I thought those were pretty badass. I mean, it was a Franken kind of gun, but anyway, my point is the pistol caliber carbine, right? I always thought the perfect round for a pistol caliber carbine would be 10 millimeter. You get the barrel length to kind of be able to use the power of the 10 millimeter, and you got 30 rounds of it. I mean, some people have trouble shooting 10 millimeter because of the recoil. Especially smaller people who don't have the weight to kind of absorb the recoil. And I think something with a stock setup would be perfect for that. So I don't know.
It's a 1 cent, not a
flashbang. Come on, you guys love the salt and pepper. Don't tell me that.
Oh, Joshua Clark nails it. The M1 carbine was the perfect PCC. So what I call
except M1 for the 30 caliber round.
Yeah, the M1 carbine was the forerunner of 300 blackout. All these guys who are 300 blackout stands, you have an M1 carbine in a modern platform. That's what you have.
Well, Joe, you got to admit the Spitzer bullet beats the 30 caliber bullet hands down.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, but that's what it is.
Hunch, the Dirty Roofer 4-5 over on so Hunch, he says BAR supremacy. I thought the BAR was pretty badass too when I realized, but later on I realized he only had 20 rounds.
Still is.
Well, the problem with it is it was literally a light machine gun with a 20-round magazine, which okay, I gotta change. I gotta change.
Yeah.
Squishy Hunter carrying a P320 is like dating a Latina. It'll cut you at some point, is what it'll do.
It'll cut you. I'm gonna cut you.
I'm gonna cut you.
Cut me just now, Shrek.
I think they adopted this machine gun a while back. Actually, I think it was like almost 6 or 7 years ago when BNT one.
It was a while ago.
I want to say it was during the first Trump administration.
For the record, defending FUDism all the way around, I'll point out that the U.S. Marine Corps still retains around 5,000 M1911 pistols. They call them the close combat pistol now for the military police special reaction teams, the fast companies, and MARSOC. So.
Yeah, Hunch, you're not wrong. I mean, 30-06 is a hell of a round. And, my understanding is a lot of those BARs in Europe were fired in semi-automatic mode.
That's the way to do it. Oh, yeah, little Cubby 7. My issued submachine gun for a long time was the MP5 SD. and that's a dang nice gun. It's pretty legit.
100%. I would, if I were like some rich asshole who could just buy whatever he wanted, that would be in my gun safe for sure.
So Matt has a one that's very close to an SD. It's a Turkish copy, but it's pretty nice.
Oh yeah. I would take that in a heartbeat. That would be one of the guns that dropping the tax stamp, for both SBR and suppressors. That would be the gun that most of us would go out and buy, because they would start selling them because people could buy them a lot easier.
So two things. One, no, I'm never going to bend the knee for a tax stamp. I'll do what I want, but whether or not I get a tax stamp is really, no one's business but my own. And Squishy Hunter, you are about to get banned from the chat. I think we should recreate the BAR and rename it the Full Auto Garand, or FAG. You're out. Get out.
The good news is he set it over on Rumble, so he is not in. No registry. No
friends do not let friends carry Bursas. I'm sorry. No, you don't carry a Bursa. If you want a poor man's Beretta, buy a Taurus, not a Bursa.
So in fairness, Joe, I have shot. Now I didn't buy it, but it's now in my gun safe. I have shot a Bursa Thunder. That's that 380,
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. I think I'm going to teach my daughter on that because that's a pretty easy gun for a gal with small hands to shoot.
Yeah. But if I was going to do that, I would just get her a Ruger LCPE or Smith & Wesson Bodyguard.
Well, I know. I'm saying before you go out and buy a gun, and make sure that they can Yeah. So since I have one already, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we had somebody use one in a class, the Bursa Thunder, and we spent more time clearing malfunctions than anything else.
In fairness, I have not had any problems with the function of it. The things that I don't like about it had way more to do with just it's an old design. I think it's like a 70 era. It's that Beretta, like PKK style Beretta, right? That's what it's modeled after.
Yep.
Of that type of gun, the best gun that I ever shot was the SIG 230, which was basically the SIG's version of that type of a gun. It even had that styling, that PPK styling.
Yeah, I'm all for me, rather than going with the ultra compact ones. I'm all about the 5-inch full size pistols because I like to shoot things a long ways away.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. All right. Speaking of things that are a long ways away, let's jump into our first topic.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, we've talked about gold backs a lot on here because that's one of the things that I'm not into them, but I know you are. And I think they're interesting, right? But the fact that in Turkey, you've heard me be critical of Turkey, right? But what's interesting is that they still have that kind of gold mindset, right?
Yeah.
Keeping your money in a mattress or under the pillow for a rainy day. So despite dollar access and government crackdowns, by the way, that was the biggest thing I was surprised by. It was really hard for regular Turkish people to get dollars over in Turkey. So anytime I was willing to pay for things in dollars, I always got a discount. Well, and don't you remember when I was there, the price of the Turkish lira or whatever dropped by 30 or 40%, and I was making money hand over fist just being able to buy in dollars. Turks are sitting on 331 billion of household gold. That ain't cheap. The distinct Turkish tradition of saving under the pillow, a term referring to keeping valuables at gold at home, often comes into play during times of economic crisis when the government calls on citizens to spend their savings to help revive the economy. The opening part of a report highlighting how Turkey's 4,500 tons of physical gold bullion are mostly domestically held is curious and also telling. Why should Turks oblige its government and spend what little wealth they are likely to have? The latter point being so because the government has destroyed the currency. This is exactly right. I mean, if you look at the wow, I'm just looking at the gold reserves and the amount versus. So if you look at this chart, under the pillow gold in Turkey vastly exceeds registered holdings. So they've got 86.5 billion in Turkish central banks gold reserves. You've got gold deposits held in Turkish banks, 46.3 billion, and 311 billion under the pillow gold holdings. Now, granted, that's going to be a softer, kind of squishier number because, oh well, how do we know it's self-reported and it's also
have some.
Well, it's estimated too, right?
Yeah.
It's like if there are 100 people, they're likely to have this amount. Based on anonymous reporting and all this kind of stuff. So there's probably some statistical modeling in that, but still, bars, coins, jewelry, whatever can be bought or is stored away as Turks wait to see how much further the lira can crumble, having hit an inflation rate of 85.5% in October 2022. Yeah, I remember that. Like that's, if I remember correctly, October 2022 is when I got there. In Turkey. So yeah, that was kind of really interesting to like live through that and seeing the Turkish lira crash like that.
So it's also a cultural thing because that part of the world has valued gold above anything else for thousands of years. And it's always been a way of avoiding taxation. It's been a way of avoiding government knowledge of the amount of money you have. Not a bad hedge from that regard. So I feel the same way about ammunition. So
yeah, well, it's funny you should mention that. Pinochet's helicopter tours for $5 says further into the collapse. How will ammunition be sourced? Assuming there's no commerce or a collapsed dollar, how will powder, primers, casings, etc. work? All are currently fed, tracked, and regulated. Well, that's the problem, right? Primers is probably the hardest thing in that for a kind of a downscaled economy to reproduce.
Yeah, remember the beginning of COVID? Primers were unobtainium, right? So,
well,
sourcing that stuff now and stockpiling it so that when the day comes, you are a warlord.
Joe, the irony on that was it wasn't like any of the factories that made primers like shut, right? I mean, they had work stoppages just like everybody else did during COVID, but after a month or two or whatever, their workers came back to work and they started making the primers again. But that was like you had this weird kind of confluence of a lack of supply, a huge demand by the shooting public, and then government demand. Remember all the ammo the federal government was buying back then, like in the beginning of right after the election?
Yep.
Yeah, swap primers for toilet paper.
It's a good thing. This is also why you have a bayonet. Well done, Squishy.
Yeah. By the way, I enjoyed your post today about bayonets. For all you people that say nobody uses bayonets, why do I keep seeing pictures of guys in combat, with their bayonets deployed? Yeah,
there's a reason why we still issue them, right?
Well, in urban combat, you can make a really strong argument for having a bayonet because you come around a corner, if there's a bad guy right there, you may not be able to shoot him before you could potentially get a bayonet into him.
If you're coming around a corner and he attempts to take that rifle from you, him losing fingers is going to discourage him very quickly.
Yeah.
In Krakow, it was not the IRS that bought millions of rounds. It was the Department of Homeland Security. But yes.
Janine's Roberts, you were not wrong. But that being said, you can only store so much of your wealth in food and water, right? And once you get food and water kind of covered, then you have to figure out where, okay, I've spent $100,000 on buy food and water. Now I need to spend, take my millions and where am I going to put it? Well, that's where you need higher density wealth
I have yet to open a can of gold that has gone bad.
This is true. That being said, you're also probably not going to trade a whole lot with gold because gold is so valuable. You're probably going to be doing most of your trading in silver.
That's what I keep telling everybody.
And bullets.
Gotta roll with the silver. Silver is way more spendable because a 1 ounce silver coin is roughly $30. That's different than laying down $3,500 with one coin, right?
You know, this is not investment advice, but if I had $10,000 to spend on physical kind of stuff, I would spend it mostly on ammo and silver. If I've got $20,000, that next $10,000 after the first 10 would be that's where I'd start hitting the gold, right?
Yeah.
So the more you have to save, the more you end up turning into gold. And, you know, uncut diamonds, I understand. Some people like that. It's pretty high density wealth as well.
Yeah, but that's real niche because how do you verify an uncut diamond versus a piece of glass?
100%. Here's the thing. Uncut diamonds, I think, only work if you have access to markets that can actually convert uncut diamonds back into more liquid forms of wealth.
Listen,
yeah, same thing.
Saran, you're not far from the truth because there are many people in this chat who have witnessed me cutting meats and cheese for like a charcuterie board at the G camp with a bayonet. So they have more uses than just stabbing people.
Well, Josh, you're not wrong. Here's the thing. You know, most people kind of think of 1 ounce coins. I think 1 ounce coins are fine, right? The problem is that if all you have is 1 ounce coin, they are very hard to divide. So you need to have some smaller denomination gold coins as well, because if you do trade gold, that would be how you would do it. But going back to the actual trade stuff would be your junk silver. I really like, dimes and quarters, was pre-63 dimes and quarters.
Nickels.
Yeah, nickels, right?
So having a variety of things in a spendable manner are the way to go. And I see gold backs keep coming up. More and more states are allowing citizens to use gold backs as legal tender. By the way, you don't need state permission. You can just agree to trade with your friends, whatever you decide is of value. But with more states actually saying that it's accepted, that makes it more mainstream. So gold backs are a good thing.
Yeah, I think there's whatever you and the person you're trading with determines are of value, then pre-65. That's what it is. Thank you. Whatever you determine to be a value is what you determine to be a value. If you have a garden and you're able to keep your neighbor in groceries for, say, ammo or say training or say some other type of goods, then that's what you have a value. Nothing wrong with a barter system.
Listen, low-key LARP, I won't be trading ammo to anybody. The exception might be 22 long rifle, but the majority of the ammo I have is going to be for my use. And I'm not going to arm my potential adversaries.
The only exception I would say to that would be any ammo I find out in the world that is not common to any of the guns that I use.
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, 30-30 is not a round I'm going to be stocking a whole lot of. And if I were to get it, I would be willing to trade, say, like a 30-30, which would be a round probably a lot of people would be interested in getting. Because they've got their one, Winchester, 94 clone or something like that in 30-30, and they have 100 rounds in a box, and that's all they have. So
this is also why I tell everyone, stop buying niche calibers. You don't want to be in the middle of a fight shouting, "Anybody got any 6.5?" Because nobody's going to have any 6.5.
Let's be honest. If you're going for practical purposes, about 4 calibers: 9mm, 5.56, 7.62 39, and 7.62 NATO. Those are about the 4. Yep. If you want to go to a 5th, 45, maybe 40 Smith & Wesson, but that would be the 5th caliber I would buy, not one of the other 2.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, special types of rounds, right? Like, so I have, like different types of 5.56. There's nothing wrong with having them, but I would just go for just common usage rounds, so that way you don't have to like plan for getting the special rounds out or something like that.
Yeah. Another good one, Guy Vermectin, 12 gauge, correct?
Yeah, 12 gauge, absolutely. Yeah, that would be my 5th round because I have 12 gauge shotguns, but White Monster energy drinks aren't currency for you. Well, we didn't say, hold your horses. We didn't say that.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I would say any Monster energy drink would be my currency of choice. But and Joe, back me up. White Monster is 0 calorie. In a survival situation, you would want monsters with calories.
I would want some calories. That's true. Not bad. Rick, I'm not going to go so far as to say 45 ACP because slow and fat gets the job done. Mostly because I'm slow and fat. But
aren't we all?
And I get the job done. But 45 ACP does actually have uses. Close quarters, dudes with altered mental states, 45 will change their behavior quickly or lower their body temperature right away. So,
speaking of dudes that have altered mental states, let me share this.
I thought my lower their body temperature comment was pretty good.
I thought so too.
Yeah. All right.
Well, speaking of people with low body temperatures, police find 383 corpses piled up in the crematorium near the U.S. border in Mexico. Now, let me be honest. When I heard this, I didn't hear this headline. I heard House of Horror with 300 over like nearly 400 bodies in it, right? And
right.
so
I was like, hey, that's the opening scene of Sicario right there, baby.
That's exactly what I thought. And then literally like 5 minutes later, I saw your post on that. I was like, huh, great minds.
This is
anyway
now. Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why before you like this is a great example of the kind of story that before you kind of get out there and really firing blind your opinion out into the world, you want to just make sure you understand what the fuck is going on with this. And because pretty quickly, those of us who were interested read the story and realized, oh, okay, it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's still fucking bad. I think this is less cartel story, more a Mexico story. 2 people have been arrested after the police found 383 corpses piled up in a private crematorium in northern Mexico's Ciudad Juarez under the U.S. Near the U.S. border. By the way, I'm sure this is probably some place that I could have seen with my hat from my house when I was living in El Paso. Let's see. The local prosecutor's office said Tuesday, attributing the grisly find to negligence. The bodies were disposed irregularly in the crematorium, which were not cremated. Garcia said corpses were stacked in no apparent order in various rooms of the building where the crematorium operates in the city about 10 miles south of El Paso, Texas. Just like they were just thrown like that indiscriminately, one on top of the other on the floor. All the bodies had been embalmed. Instead of ashes, the relatives were given other material. Gross. Authorities estimated some of the remains could have been there for up to 2 years. Garcia blamed the carelessness and irresponsibility of the crematorium owners, adding that all such businesses know what the daily cremation capacity is. You can't take in more than you can process, he said. So, Joe, I mean, not what we thought at first, but still pretty damn bad.
It's still a symptom of the situation in Mexico, right?
Yeah. By the way, if you've ever been curious about how big El Paso is versus Juarez, it's a good indicator there.
Yeah.
So like this is Fort Bliss up here. This is El Paso because this is the airfield at Fort Bliss. This is like where like 2nd Brigade and 1st Brigade are, and then you got the back part of the post here. This is where the big mall is right here. This is downtown, kind of right in here. This is the mountain in the middle. So anyway, there's El Paso for you. And this place, I guess, is all. So okay, so this place was not up by the border. It was in the south end of Juarez, south of the airport. But Joe, it was I just we just did our show the other day on the Cartel stuff, and I immediately, like you said, went to Sicario. But this just kind of goes to show you this is not just a symptom of just negligence, right? This goes to show you how they view life and human importance down in Mexico. They don't care about these bodies because they don't care about people.
Right. Somebody replied to my post with Benicio del Toro saying, "Welcome to Juarez."
Well, and speaking of the devil, just the other day we had a story like that. I guess this would have been either yesterday or the day before that. There were like 20 bodies strung up from an overpass, and I don't think that was in Juarez, but it may have been
4. It was 4 bodies.
All right, now you're gonna make me look this up because I could have swore it said 20.
4 headless bodies. Now, for those who debate this movie, also the number one character in the Sicario movies is not Josh Brolin. It is Benicio del Toro's character. So,
say that again.
The main character in the Sicario movies is not Josh Brolin.
Oh, yeah.
It's
and the villain is what's her name? The female FBI agent is the villain.
Oh yeah, and she was not the girl boss in that movie. She got her butt kicked, as she should have.
Yeah,
I love when he shoots her in the body armor. He's like, "Don't ever point a gun at me again, Kate."
Yeah, that's
Alejandro. That's his name, Alejandro.
Okay, all right, here we go. So we were both right to a certain extent. 20 men were found dead after cartel violence. 5 were decapitated, with 4 of those bodies hung upside down near a bridge near Culiacan, Sinaloa. So that's that same area that we were talking about where the Sinaloa cartel kind of civil war is going on.
Yeah.
Heads were found in a bag nearby. Yeah.
A raging psychosis. We find tractor trailers like that all the time.
Yeah, that's the sad thing about the Border Patrol finds that kind of stuff pretty frequently. They find out that their load is dead, and they just leave the trailer on the side of the road somewhere and take off. Yeah. Any other Mexico stuff to talk about?
I'm on a Mexican. Whoa. Radio. That's a classic. That was a classic.
I absolutely remember seeing that. Like, I want to say like all the time on MTV back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And the image I have from that I took away from that, like almost all music videos, I've got at least one solid image from it. Right. It's the image I have from that video is the guy's face coming out of a bowl of beans.
Yeah. Yes. Odd, but that was videos in the early 80s.
Yeah, right. I mean, you clearly everybody in the that made videos back in that era was on some kind of drugs. All right.
Does anyone know, aside from Scott, because we're the old men of the group, anyone know the first video ever played on MTV?
Oh, I know what it is.
So what was it? Yes, it was Video Killed the Radio Star.
That's right. That is right.
No, it was not Money for Nothing. It was Video Killed the Radio Star. There we go. Everyone was getting it. Won by Metallica. Come on, Casey. That was at least 10 years in. The Buggles. Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles.
The Buggles.
Yeah.
I know the song, but I couldn't have told you who the hell who the hell sent that.
Well, we had this discussion yesterday here at my house that I know the most esoteric and useless knowledge, and that is one of those pieces. So.
Yeah, there's God. I tell you, the thing about MTV, for the first 10 years of its existence, it was literally like watching the radio on TV.
Yeah.
And the VJs actually seemed to know what they were talking about.
And now it's all just reality shows and nonsense and no music.
Is it even MTV? Is there a channel called MTV anymore? I have no idea.
I don't know, but the last time I saw anything on it, it was all just shows and not any music. It used to just be hours and hours of music, which was awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. All right.
Oh, Juan Fellow was stealing that. Keeper of Old Knowledge, or Kook. That's good.
All right. Let's move on to our... Now, Joe, it's not a good week without a terrorist attack in America or a Philippines-China story update. And unfortunately, we already had our terror attack in the U.S. this week. So now we have to get our obligatory Philippines-China update. China warns Philippines against self-inflicted destruction by hosting U.S. missile systems. Heaven forbid they look out for their own national defense. China, why don't you stay out of the internal workings of the Philippine defense? It's like we've heard that somewhere. Oh, that's right. We've heard that from China every time somebody says something about their defense stuff. Defense Ministry also denounced Manila's plan to encourage fishermen to operate in disputed South China Sea waters. All right, I'm going to have to give me a second here. I hate, I miss old Watcher because, there's so many little things he would do just kind of behind. Well, you and I would be prattling on about whatever. Actually, mostly it was me prattling on about whatever. You jumping in for the insightful comments when needed, but he does so many little things
about.
Well, let's see. Here we go. All right, we got it. Let's see. China's defense ministry has warned the Philippines against self-inflicted destruction by hosting U.S. missile systems and denounced Manila's plan to encourage fishermen to operate in the disputed South China Sea waters. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Manila dismissed drug smuggling allegations by the Philippine military as baseless slander. The United States has reportedly decided to deploy additional strategic Typhoon missile systems in the Philippines after transporting the mid-range missile launcher to Luzon last year. The U.S. Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System, or a Nemesis, anti-ship missiles used in last month's Balikatan joint exercise will also remain as a deterrent against coercion. Have you seen that Nemesis missile system that the Marines are fielding is pretty interesting. It's not as long as it doesn't have the range that the Tomahawk has, which is what the Typhoon system shoot. But it's a pretty strong capability. And what's interesting is they're putting it on a JLTV platform that is unmanned. So it's kind of like, it can be remote kind of piloted to where they want to shoot the missile from. And so if they return fire on the launcher system, there's no casualties on that system. A remote operated system, not a kind of autonomous system. Let's see.
Like a closed weapon system, but it also drives.
Yeah. Manila's move to introduce these strategic weapons is binding itself to the U.S. war machine, which would undermine regional security, stability, and sabotage the common interests of regional nations. That's the Defense Ministry spokesperson Zhang Zhaogang said in Beijing on Thursday. Inviting wolves into the house will backfire, leading to self-destruction. They will destroy their own homes. That's reminiscent of that kind of early Gulf War kind of, you remember how Saddam Hussein used to like make pronouncements like, the blood will rain down from the sky and the scorpion will come out of its hole to sting the American invaders and drive them back, suckling their mother's teats. He used to have that very kind of flowerful kind of language like that. So this kind of reminds me, you are inviting the wolf in and will destroy your own house. Let's see. So the Typhoon missile system, known as the Mid-Range Capability Launcher, can launch Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles and SM-6 air defense missiles with a range up to 2,000 kilometers. That would cover nearly the whole of the South China Sea, as well as the island of Taiwan, and even part of the Chinese mainland from its northern Luzon positions. Nemesis, a mobile ground-based anti-ship missile launcher, was deployed in April on Batan's, the northern group of islands in the Philippines, with only 190 kilometers from Taiwan. But yeah, so we could go on about this, but I think we kind of got it. Joe, the thing that China really doesn't like about this is every time America puts a new capability in a new location within that second island chain kind of region, that's another dilemma that China has to worry about, right? And it's not to say that it like overwhelms China or whatever, but it's another target set. It's another kind of asset that the allies, if China were to move against, say, the Philippines or Taiwan or some other country in East Asia, would give them another capability to project power in the region. And let's be honest, Joe, we never should have left Clark Air Force Base. We never should have left, what's the naval base? Sudo Bay naval base, right? I mean, Subic, thank you. And so, reestablishing these kind of power projection platforms inside that island chain is exactly what we need to do in order to be able to balance against Chinese power, which, let's be honest, China has the overwhelming advantage in the ability to project power inside that first island chain at this point.
Didn't the Army used to have a jungle training center there in the Philippines?
Yeah, in the Philippines, yeah. But I think the last jungle school was in the Panama, but I think that one. I think back in the 50s or 60s they had something there. They had Recondo School in Vietnam.
That just, to me, I can't square that. So,
what's that?
Having schools in Vietnam.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think Vietnam was a little different back then.
I would say.
Is MTV still a thing? No, I don't think it is. I think it's turned into Viacom is what I think it's done.
I like Juan Cholo. The Philippines have been our favorite Asians since about 1899. This is true.
Oh, yeah. Joe, tell us about tactical-wisdom.com right now. What's going on?
We're gearing up for some classes. We have July, I believe it's 19th, whatever the weekend is before Shield Field Days. We have a Fieldcraft class. So if you're going to come to Shield Field Days, come a week early, do Fieldcraft, then hang out with us all week. We have July 25th, the opening day of Shield Field Days. We're going to have a first aid class put on by me and our friend from Project 223 Preparedness, who's actually a pretty good guitar player. So I'm going to tap on him to play the guitar on Friday night. I also hear a rumor that Jason from our chat will be making dinner that night. Then we'll have Shield Field Days, the 25th through the 27th, with Angry American, Mexican Iron Man, Haley Shane, and a whole bunch of your other favorite Twitter and YouTube personalities. And the good folks from Shield Arms and a whole bunch of other local people and events, Exumbris Designs and several others. We got good stuff coming up. I think Vigilante Engineering is going to talk a little bit about HF Radio too. So it's going to be a good weekend. Put that on your calendar, July 25th to the 27th. Then right after that, August 8th or August 1st to the 3rd, we're doing community security ops. But I've got another big training week coming up. Let me pull that up real quick and figure out the dates on this. I'm going to run all of my classes in a week all of the core classes. So it will be, stand by, I'm almost there. August 22nd through the 31st. You can get Fieldcraft the 22nd to the 24th. Then the 25th to 27th, we roll directly into Community Security Ops. There's a one-day break where you get to catch your breath a little bit, see some local scenery. Then August 29th through 31st is a Combatives weekend where we're doing all of the stuff, including bayonets. So that week, the end of August will be a good week if you want to come on out and get everything in 1 week. So good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, talk about a good week to be there.
Yeah, and you know what? If you've been to any of the classes, either mine or NC Scouts, there's a field training exercise we got in there in the middle of August where you can actually go out and conduct a patrol and brief a patrol report when you're done. So check that course out too. Lots of training going on at tactical-wisdom.com. Come on out.
Hey, Jim tells you, good morning, Scott and Joe. By the way, if you haven't followed Jim's YouTube channel, give him a look.
You really should.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like he only comes on when I'm at work. So, whatever. It is what it is. But I jump in the chat and say hello when I can. All right. Let us do the brush beater ad segment here today. All right. So today we're diving into the MENA region's turmoil and Ukraine war insights. We're proud to bring you another ad from our trusted sponsor, Brush Beater Store, arming you for an unstable world. In the MENA region, the Iran-Israel ceasefire hangs by a thread after the U.S. B-2 strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Iran's proxies are still active, and 12 billion children displaced by regional wars. Talk about a fucking impact. In Ukraine, Russia's hypersonic missiles and drone swarms battered Kiev in June, while their motorcycle units spearheaded rapid assaults towards Pokrovsk, showing how drones and mobility redefine conflict. These threats, foreign or domestic, demand vigilance. At brushbeater.store, you can counter them with cutting-edge gear. The handheld drone detection system, battle-tested in Ukraine, spots enemy drones like those used by Iran's allies, protecting your team. The tiny SA Ultra Spectrum Analyzer scans RF signals to detect surveillance or comms, crucial to stay ahead of asymmetric tactics. The 2025 Signals Intelligence course, led by NC Scout, trains you to intercept and analyze enemy signals with classes in North Carolina, Montana, Missouri, and more. Check out brushbeater.store/collection/drone-detection or collections/training-courses to gear up now. Use our exclusive code CFC10 at checkout for 5% off drone detectors, spectrum analyzers, SIGINT training, or any other gear like radios or helmets. Over $100 orders over $100 shipped for free. Visit brushbeater.store and prep for what's next. Thanks to Matt for his relentless support. Your dedication, Matt, to the CFC is unmatched.
And listen, he's running 10% off all weekend, so get in there and check that out. Also,
so whatever you get, 5% on top of that. So,
yeah, and there's a bunch of people talking about the M32s in the chat. This radio here, check out what I found over on Amazon. It is a drop-in felt clip for the DM32, nice. And you can still see your screen and work all of your buttons. So, find one of those.
Sometimes you don't need a molly pouch; you just need a clip.
Yep, especially like running around the camp here. It's pretty good. Neat stuff.
Hey Joe, what's that radio that has like the 3 antennas on it? They're 3 stubby antennas. What's that called?
I can't remember the name of it, but it's not really anything that you're ever going to want to use.
It's a satellite deal, right?
Satcom radio. Yeah. It's not really anything you're going to want to use for civilian use. And it's got, first of all, it's very heavy. And those antennas end up getting tangled up on literally everything. So I can't remember the name of it, but it's a lot of the LARPer guys like to have them for their airsoft wars, but we don't use them.
So. Here it is. Let's see. Yeah. This. Here's a picture of it. Let's see. It does look cool. You got to admit.
Does it?
I thought the antennas were a little stubbier than this, but I guess not.
No, they're not. They really can't be for the bands that you want to use.
Radio reference. Let's see. What is this? I'm not doing a captcha online on air. But of course, we got the
Baofeng AR-152.
I'm telling you, man, that thing is
a lot of the guys in this chat were on Twitter yesterday because somebody posted their photo talking about the Exumbris Designs and Tactical Wisdom AR-152 pouch as the best radio pouch in the business. So
yeah,
get yourself.
Well, the irony is, I wonder if these Falcon 3s would actually fit in one of those.
No, they're a little too big. I have a Falcon 3 here somewhere. Oh, it's behind the screen. They're a little bit too big for our AR-152 pouch. So,
yeah, I tell you, radios are cool. Let's be honest, they are cool. All right. Let's see. Anything else we need to talk about before we dive into our main topic today, Joe?
Negative.
All right. Well, here we go. Let's talk some Middle East stuff. How the Iran war exposed limits of Chinese influence in the Middle East. Now, what I think you're finding when you have let's be honest, you may not like Trump, but he's way more effective in the international relations arena than the Biden administration ever was. Even on a day where they were dreaming about the best idea that they could have, they could never dream with the things that Trump's been able to do in the last 6 months. Now, is he amazing at everything? No, he's not. But he's doing way better in comparison. And so the thing that I thought was interesting here is we talked about this the other day with the Congo kind of initial peace deal that, granted, it's still shaky because it's in the early days, but I think we have a lot of good reason to be hopeful. What you're seeing is both in the Middle East, and we'll talk about it here in this story, but also in Africa, is the weakness of Chinese deals, especially now that they're established and people have, okay, I've had the Chinese in my country for, say, 5 to 10 years. Do I want to go with this, or do I want to switch horses midstream and maybe bring the U.S. in to get, a better deal? Joe, you can only get so much from China in those deals that they give. Sometimes there's just a qualitative advantage to the deal you can get with the U.S.
Yeah, and one deals from an open and honest framework of wanting to try to better each other, and the other one just trying to see how he can rob you. So seems pretty simple.
Yeah, 100%, 100% on that. All right. Let's see. Let's read a little bit of the story. For years, analysts have noted that China is closing in on the U.S. as a peer competitor, whether in terms of high-tech industries, naval fleets, or the size of diplomatic corps. That power shift seems to have played out in the Middle East, a region where the United States has traditionally held significant influence. 2 years ago, Beijing brokered a normalization of diplomatic relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Later the same year, the China-led BRICS, designed to counterbalance the U.S.-led Western democracies, admitted 4 new members from the region: Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The bloc was formed by Brazil, Russia, India, China in 2009 and expanded to include South Africa in 2010. However, the action of the United States and the inaction of China during the 12-day Israel-Iran conflict revealed that the power gap between the Beijing and Washington remains sizable. The United States joined its ally Israel in the conflict on June 21st by attacking key Iranian nuclear sites with 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs. 2 days later, President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. The truce appears to be holding thus far. By contrast, Beijing's support for Iran remained largely rhetorical. The Chinese regime condemned Israel and criticized the United States over strikes on Iran. It also released joint statements with the member states of BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a China-Russia-led security grouping, expressing grave concern that the attacks on Iran violated the international law, something that doesn't actually exist. The revelation of
anything Chinese and Russian-led talks about international law.
I know there is some great irony about that. All right. That means Middle East countries will shift from pro-Beijing position to a neutral stance in the contest between China and the United States as the world moves to two camps led by two powers, he told the Epoch Times. Beijing is keenly aware that U.S. focus is on Asia, particularly China, according to Christopher Baldwin, a senior fellow at the UK-based Henry Jackson Society. The Chinese regimes deliberately kept a low profile during the Israel-Iran military conflict, he said. The more that they can keep the U.S. working on other non-Chinese issues, I think they see it as better for them. Here's the interesting thing there, Joe. If I'm America and I'm focused on East Asia and China, one of the things that I would do is I identify where China is strong other places in the world and start going after those allies, right? Undermining China's ability to project power, both in a diplomatic, throughout the entire dime paradigm, into, say, South America, into Central America, into Africa, into the Middle East, even Central Asia. China and America are kind of vying for deals with Turkmenistan right now. That should be like a no-brainer for China, but it's not. Turkmenistan is legitimately, looking to the U.S. potentially to counterbalance against, their deals with China. So, once again, interesting stuff afoot when it comes to America's international relations and international policy in balancing against China.
I think a lot of people know that we're not as exploitative as the Chinese are. Sure, we're exploitative, but we're not to the level of giving you some loan you can never repay and then seizing your entire nation. I think the first place where we need to start looking is Mexico, in an attempt to blunt Chinese influence there. Look at the population of Mexicali over the last 50 years. What has happened there and who lives there now and what language is spoken in Mexicali, and realize that maybe we're in bad shape. There's also an entire string of towns from the tri-border area all the way up into Mexico that are all Arabic speaking and are full of mosques and are full of only Arabic people. That's because it's a line of smuggling. And we need to be paying attention to those areas way more than we are, say, Turkmenistan.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. So I thought that was interesting, just kind of looking at how the Chinese are clearly not. Here's the other thing. I think their energy policy shows that they realize that their access to Middle Eastern energy, which is, they are the number one exporter of Iranian oil at this point. They also know that is potentially likely to disappear.
Point, right? Yeah.
Huh?
For them, that's a risk point. Yeah.
Right. So the irony is within the next year, the amount of gigawatts that China will be adding to its electrical grid every year is equal to the total gigawatts put out by the U.S. Power grid. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that China can use all those gigawatts, but what that ultimately means is that they will start be able to produce surplus power to do other things with. And they're kind of eating that. It's just part of their national budget. Ultimately, I think you'll see a very fast electrification of Chinese economy just because they want to get away from any kind of foreign energy. Now, the other problem with that, Joe, is we've been critical of solar power, solar farms, and all this kind of stuff. Is how long do they last, really? They say, a solar panel and a solar farm will last 20 years. Well, really, will it really? How are you dedicating the human labor to clean those off? Because a lot of these solar power farms that they've put up are in areas that are prone to dust. How these Chinese solar power solar cells have like a half-life of like 5 years is what I understand. So starting at 5 years, a 20-year solar could basically fail at any point is what I understand. They just aren't as reliable because they don't have the quality control. And then, by the way, there is the whole kind of hail and other kind of environmental damage you could expect to get.
It'll last 20 years if you never have hail.
Right. And wind damage, right? These things are like giant sails, essentially. Like if you have all it takes is a good 50 mile, 60 mile an hour per hour wind, and all of a sudden, whoosh, there goes half of your solar farm. And the other half that doesn't get blown away gets smashed into by the pieces of the ones that get picked up. So I mean, can it be a success? Like large scale solar, can it work? Yeah, it can work. The problem is it's still problematic, and you're not going to get all the savings that you think you're going to get. Jim Telgi says solar panels have an effective lifespan of 10 years, even less since China installed cellular kill switches in every single one they built. I don't think it's all of them. I think your average Chinese cell doesn't have that device in it, but definitely some of the industrially installed ones in America did have that. Yeah, so when they started working on molten sodium thorium reactors, that's what kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. Evidently, they've got a one that is up and running at scale so that they could potentially replicate. It just takes a little time for these things to get built, but this is one of the things that we need to get on ourselves. If everybody keeps talking about AI as the future of the American economy, well, show me the electricity we're going to power all these AI data centers with, because I ain't seeing it being built.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go into the next one. Trump says Israel agrees to 60-day Gaza ceasefire, urges Hamas to accept. Now, Hamas has said they would accept, but that doesn't mean they're actually accepting just yet. President Trump on Tuesday said Israel has agreed to terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. Stand by.
Okay. I don't know that Hamas is going to agree to it and accept it, but we will see. I'll cover for Scott sort of as best I can. There was a story that came out about Hamas allegedly killing 12 U.S. aid workers or something. Turns out that the people that were killed were actually locals who worked for an international aid agency. But I think the craziest thing I saw out of that was Grok defending it. Grok said that there's no proof that these people were Americans, and they only killed 8 of them, not 12. So the story is false. And I'm like, Grok, you're literally defending terrorists. So I don't know what that's all about. Let me pull up the story Scott was reading and try to cover it because I can't see it on my screen. Stand by. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Huh. Okay. I can't actually open that story. I don't know where Scott went or what happened, but there he went. Oh, JRH, that's a good point. Flip it over and tuck it behind. That's a good point. I'll give you that. I don't own one though, so it's not on me. Israel allegedly agreed to a ceasefire with Iran as well, and then immediately launched a whole barrage of missiles. So I don't know. I don't know how much faith I put in this. I'm trying, guys, to get this story to open on my end, and it will not. So, oh, there it goes. Took me a minute. All right. Trump announced the development as he prepares to host Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for talks at the White House. The U.S. leader has been increasing pressure on the Israeli government and Hamas to broker a ceasefire and hostage agreement. He says, my representatives had a long and productive... I can't do it in his voice, but I'm going to try it. My representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire, which, quite frankly, is the best kind of fire. During the time, we will work with all parties to end the war. I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes the deal, because it will not get better. It will only get worse. People ask me how bad. I say it'll be the worst. They won't even believe it. Anywho.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome back. I carried on.
I know. I knew you. I knew you would be able to see. You're normally chatting with the chat, like by typing. This way, you could just talk to them.
This guy's just forcing me to pay attention.
All right.
I did a very, very creditable Donald Trump, so it wasn't great, but.
Now, so here's the interesting thing here, Joe. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. You could argue that Donald Trump shouldn't make promises that he doesn't know can be kept, i.e. this 60-day ceasefire, right? Now, depending on the situation, I tend to agree with you, but this might be one of those exceptions to where I think it's good to kind of put it out there early, because it literally shames the other side into, it's like, hey, the Israelis are being reasonable here. They want to do a 60-day ceasefire. Don't you want to do a 60-day? Oh, you don't? You just want to keep fighting? Well, then, because it really gives Israel the high ground, at least, especially to the Arab nations. Because I think that Trump is on the cusp of essentially, if he can get the shooting to stop in Gaza, to basically making a deal to where the Arab states come in and basically take over Gaza.
We're going to put the biggest and most beautiful Trump hotel in Gaza.
Hey, man, if it keeps the peace. I wonder if there's a Trump form of diplomacy. Everywhere there's a Trump hotel, there's no war. Kind of like you heard about McDonald. What is it? The McDonald theory, the McDonald peace theory. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, we don't attack anywhere where there's a McDonald's.
Well, no, not we don't. Countries that have McDonald's don't attack each other. But that didn't work. That was
there's a McDonald's in Moscow and a McDonald's in
Ukraine. Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's funny, and it works until it stops working. All right. Trump announced a development as he prepares to host Benjamin Netanyahu for talks in the White House on Monday. The U.S. leader has been increasing pressure on the Israeli government and Hamas to broker a ceasefire and hostage and bring about an end to the war in Gaza. My representatives have long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. Let's see. I hope for all good in the Middle East and Hamas take this deal, because it will not get any better. It will only get worse, he said. So that's exactly that, right? He's basically saying, why won't they take a deal? This is the best deal they're ever going to get. So there's definitely some pressure being put on Hamas by doing this. And it also gives him ammunition against his domestic critics who say, oh, well, you just keep arming and helping Israel. He's like, no, what are you talking about? I tried to have a ceasefire. Israel said yes, but Hamas said no. They want war.
Crazy.
Let's see. Yeah, we've already read that mostly. Trump promised that it was the best and final offer, may find a skeptical audience with Hamas even before the expiration of the war's longest ceasefire in March. Trump had repeatedly issued dramatic ultimatums to pressure Hamas to agree to longer pauses in the fighting that would see the release of more hostages and return of more aid to Gaza's civilian populace. Israeli Minister for Strategic Arms Affairs Ron Dermer was in Washington on Tuesday for talks with senior administration officials to discuss the potential Gaza ceasefire, Iran and other matters. Dermer is expected to meet with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. You know, one thing I like about, I didn't notice this with Pence as much, but definitely J.D. Vance has got like real responsibilities, I feel, in this White House. Like he is like involved in all the big conversations. I think that's a pretty key kind of thing of interest as you go forward in this administration. I wonder if he really brings him in like at every level by the end of the administration with the idea of like, this is my successor, you know, go forth and do good things. JD Vance, here is the presidency on a silver platter. Now I'm going to go play golf. What do you think about this, Joe? I mean, is a ceasefire even realistic for these people, or is there enough fatigue in Gaza to kind of make this pressure work?
No, I don't think we have much pressure over Hamas. I don't think we have much negotiating ability there. Those people literally hate each other, so logic isn't going to work. Because what is Hamas's demands in all of this? That Israel die.
Yeah.
So you really can't negotiate with people like that. And I say the same thing about Iran. Whatever peace you have with Iran is temporary at best.
I wonder how many of the original kind of at the beginning of the war, you know, October 7th war, I wonder how many of the Hamas leadership or higher ranking folks are still alive, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. They got to be down to like their 15th choices.
I know, right? I mean, look at Hezbollah. Talk about people being down. Like for a while, they would get a new leader, and then he'd be dead 24 hours later.
Yeah.
Until the Israeli mole was made the leader, and that would be so funny if you found out, like the guy who became the head of Hezbollah after like 10 other dudes got whacked was a Israeli spy. That would be so fitting.
Yeah.
All right. We got enough of that one. Let's see. Oh, and so, you know, Joe, Middle East, North Africa, these are places in the world. But let's be honest. Are these places in the world that anybody really wants to live in? And I thought this would be a kind of a breath of fresh air. This next story, let me post this up. There we go. The best countries in the world. Totally accurate and absolutely reliable polling data, I'm sure. Though I am inclined to agree with it when I look at the first three countries, right? So this is like the U.S. News best country ranking are based on the survey of 17,000 people from 36 nations who evaluate 89 countries across 10 sub-rankings in partnership with the WPP and Wharton School of Business, i.e. the CIA. Anytime you ever see Wharton in relation to international relations things, just read CIA. So number one, of course, is Switzerland. I mean, let's be honest. Switzerland, every picture of Switzerland I see, even the slums, looks like the fucking Sound of Music. So I'm inclined to agree that this might be a pretty damn good place to live. Especially, they're the last people in Europe, really, that doesn't use the euro. So that's good, too. Do you remember James Rawls used to always say, if you're going to buy foreign currency, buy Swiss francs.
What's
that?
They used to, but that's all about geography and mountains more than anything.
Oh, I
else.
know. Well, yeah. I mean, you got to. Switzerland is a uniquely defendable piece of land within Europe, for sure. All the parts of Switzerland that got invaded are now parts of other countries like Italy or France or Germany.
I'll point out that the first time that you find anything even remotely Middle Eastern is the UAE, which is Middle East light.
Yeah.
Right. When you go to Dubai, it's more of a Western city. Everything in there in the top 15 or so is either a Western nation or heavily Western influenced, like Japan.
Yeah. China is like number 16, right? I mean, so you got Switzerland, Japan, US, number 3. Makes sense. You know, US, despite all the fact that everybody hates the US, they would probably rather live in America than anywhere else. Let's be honest. People who like Japan, but they don't want to live there.
Correct.
And Switzerland, it may be the same way. I'll be honest with you. I would never want to live in I wouldn't want to live in Europe, much less Switzerland. So the United States, oddly enough, is the country, having lived outside the United States most of the last 20 years, is the place that I would most like to live, despite all its flaws. Canada's number 4 because why not? Canada's nice. Everybody likes Canada. Australia. What's that?
It's U.S. light.
It's like the European version of the U.S.
Yeah.
And I'll note 3, 4, and 5 are all U.S. or English speaking English speaking countries. Then you've got Sweden, number 6. That's because that's where all the Muslims want to go. So all the people that didn't vote for Muslim countries voted for Sweden. And then Germany is number 7. And then another English-speaking country at number 8. And number 9 is another. So let me get this straight. 5 out of the top 10 are English-speaking countries. It's almost like there's something about the society and culture of English-speaking countries that make them uniquely desirable to live in.
Well, I would barely call what they speak in New Zealand English, but sure.
Fair. Yeah. Well, they also have that.
It's the only place they can take an Australian accent and mess it up.
Well, it's they got the haka dance to fuck it all up, you know. Anyway, I thought this was interesting. You're right. 17 is UAE. Of note, South Korea, where I live, is on number 18. I always say that South Korea is Japan without the weirdos. Let's see.
More English in Japan than Japanese. So,
well, I would say that English will get you further in South Korea than it will in Japan. And
that's fair.
And the main reason is because of there's a broad influence of U.S. culture on, and then with the U.S. soldiers in Seoul and other major areas, you just have a lot of people used to dealing with Americans.
Interestingly, of that list, only 2 of the top 20-ish or so are in the Middle East, and they are the most westernized ones, right?
Yeah, you got Qatar and UAE.
Yeah, everything else is good, other than China and Japan. China, Japan, and South Korea are European, Western civilization-based places.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is 32. India, Mexico, and Egypt are all 33, 34, and 35. Russia is 36, so it's on the list. Morocco is your kind of the last Muslim country on the list. And, of course, South Africa, one of the worst countries in the world, unfortunately, because of, just reasons, made the list. So interesting. I thought that it makes me feel like that nobody wants to live in Africa for the most part, unless it's basically either Arab Africa or used to be white Africa. Those are the only 2 places in Africa anybody wants to live. Oh no, Morocco's on there, but they cover Morocco up though. Oh
But-
no, it's in the
How
Europe.
long was Morocco French?
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's proximity to. Is it French or is it? I thought Spain owned part of Morocco.
Spain owns a small part of Morocco now, but France owned Morocco as a colonial power.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right. Didn't the Marines? Well, oh no, it wasn't the Marines. I think it was the Army that did that amphibious operation into Morocco.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know about that. That's like the first kind of Americans in the European theater.
Yes, when we landed in Morocco and fought the French.
That's right. The Vichy French. All right.
And they surrendered after an hour.
Yeah. Well, the Big Red One, that kind of like that's how I learned about that. You know, that talk about a good movie, man. Big Red One.
That's a great movie. It is a classic epic film. So
well, you know, the funny thing is that's like right in the middle of like the classic 60s World War II movies and the modern era of World War movies.
An interesting point I like to talk about is highlighted by the Big Red One is that now we complain if our deployments last more than 18 months. Then you went to war and you came back when the war was done. There was no rotation, right?
Right.
There was no, all right, I'll go back there. I've been there for a year. I'll go back there in 2 years.
It was until complete.
Yeah, and you stayed in the field until it was done.
Well, in fairness, that was mostly what we went into Africa in mid 43, late 43.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mid-43.
So essentially you had from mid 43 to mid 45. So 2 years. Even if you were in combat for the whole time, you were only in combat for 2 years as a U.S. ground troop. Now, that's not saying nothing. That's fucking World War II, which is some of the most intensive conflict that the United States has ever been involved in. But our ground, most people think of like World War II as like, oh, that's 5 years or whatever, right? Because they think of, Pearl Harbor. Well, in fact, it's 4 years. And then we were only on the ground for really 2 of it in Europe. We were in the beginning.
In the Pacific from the very beginning.
Yeah, because of the Philippines and all that. And all those other islands.
Wake Island, Guam.
When did we do Midway, the Battle of Midway?
The Battle of Midway was
44?
Right at the same time. No. Midway was 42. It is the same
42,
time.
that's right.
Now. Yeah.
That was really kind of the opening of our kind of offensive operations, if I remember correctly.
We didn't know if that Japanese column was going to turn south and head to reinforce Guadalcanal or turn north and hit the Aleutians.
Yeah. All right. So final story in our Middle East, North Africa segment. Iran loaded mines into vessels in the Persian Gulf during the recent escalation with Israel, raising U.S. concerns that Tehran may be preparing to block the Strait of Hormuz. Interesting. The fact that they didn't do it is interesting as well. I'm going to do it. I've got the gun right here. I've loaded the gun. I'm going to do it. Oh, I'm not going to do it. So, I mean, just because they loaned mines into ships doesn't mean they were ever going to pull the trigger. But they also could have been. So, I mean, you got to take everything, with the correct amount of risk.
These are just the ships we know about. How many commercial ships that are actually covert Iranian, special ops boats have mines on them right now that are still ready to go?
Yeah. Well, and, this is actually a good point here. Crisis Watch says if Iran moves to block the Straits of Hormuz, it won't just hit Israel. It'll hit the whole global economy. That's 100% right. And if for any other reasons, I don't think that they'll do it just because they would hit their own oil ability to export oil. I think that's one of those kind of like only if they really go to the mattresses would they do that.
Yeah. I think that Iran realized that mining the strait would have been a bridge too far, and it would have brought a big international coalition down on them. And I don't think even China could have saved them.
So that's the kind of thing that gets not just the U.S. but other countries to decide that they want to do regime change. All right. Let's move on to segment 2, Eastern European developments.
Yes, let's talk about my favorite topic, Eastern Europe.
I know. Well, we're going to talk about the fact that we called it here on this channel a while back, Joe, but we're starting to see it.
Admin note: Scott had to call this Eastern European updates because I refused to be involved in a show that mentioned the word Ukraine. So,
I mean, of note, Joe mentioned the word Ukraine first. Though I'm actually more interested in what Russia's doing, if I'm honest, because Russia's actions have the ability to really kind of go far and wide in the region. Through Russia has amassed a very large force to try to take the Ukraine Sumy region. Ukrainian military officials say they've thwarted the summer offensive. Yeah, if they said they've thwarted it, then hold on to your knickers. You ain't seen nothing yet. Russian sources, meanwhile, claim the advance is inevitable. Sumy is where Ukraine staged its invasion into Russia's neighboring Kursk region in August 2024. Ukraine still holds territory in Kursk, though a much smaller area than it had at the height of the operation. Now Sumy is the center of a huge fight that has seen both sides deploy some of their best troops. Here's the thing, I think, Joe. I think they're going to give Ukraine just enough of a dilemma in Sumy to really kind of pour a lot of troops in around Pokrovsk to kind of take the rest of the Donbass and push into Dnieper, Oblast and towards the Dnieper River. Though the Russians have poured 50,000 troops in the effort, the offensive has been halted, according to Ukrainian Forces General Staff. Currently, the situation is stabilized and the advancement of the enemy has stopped along the line of a bunch of cities I'm not going to say. In Ukraine...
Well done.
Look at, I'm telling you, Joe. You pronounce these for me. How about this? I never challenged Joe on any of this stuff, but Joe, you've got some experience with the Russian language, so
yeah, говорите по-русски. Yeah, it's really I can do that.
Yunakivka, Yablunivka, Novomikliavka.
Look, you're doing fine. You're doing
Oleksivka and Kindraktivka. I think that's actually the last one sounded pretty good there.
It was actually pretty good. The people were waiting for you to do it. I mean, there was a whole thing down in the chat about.
That's why I built it up.
Yeah. You guys asked.
That's what they're here for. That's what they're really here for. Let's be honest.
Right on.
All right, I'm going to share this while I talk. So you guys can see kind of the region we are speaking of. See, these are all those whack-ass named villages that I just said. All right. Our troops maintain defensives along a designated border, conduct preparation and counteroffensive measures to repel the enemy. Ukrainian troops liberated the village of Andriivka. The general staff claimed. In addition, our units advanced on the Oleksivka, pushing the opponent away from Sumy. Their main strategy is to wear us down with their numbers. Well, that's what you call strategy, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how that works. Right? I mean, it's called war.
Yeah. Earlier this month, Ukraine sent elite commandos from units from its military intelligence directorate, known as the GRU, to help stabilize the situation. Since then, the Russian advances in Sumy have largely stopped, and Ukraine has clawed back some of its territory. Let's see, elite units from the main directorate of intelligence of General Bundanov managed to stabilize the situation in the Sumy direction, despite the concentration of 50,000 Russian forces. The enemy is also being destroyed by guys I was with in Syria. Interesting. As an indication of Russia's interest in pushing deep into Sumy, it sent some of its most elite units into the fight as well. It's not so important the number of indicators and quantity of indicators. It's more important the explanation of what's happening now. Currently, the maximum allied number of troops of the armed forces of Russia Federation is conducting the offensive in the Sumy region. For example, the 104th Airborne Division, the 40th Brigade of Naval Infantry. Joe, I remember you talking about those guys earlier in the war.
Yep.
The 83rd Airborne Brigade and the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade. So far, the best units of the Russian army has. The goal, he said, is to create a buffer zone in our territory. They are facing crazy resistance from our side, and advance from their side exists, but at this point, I can't say. So here's the thing. That was kind of interesting, what he says there. To create a buffer zone in our territory, they are facing crazy resistance from our side, and advance from their side exists. Okay, so he just admits. Now this is Budanov, who's the intelligence leader, right? And so if he's admitting there's a Russian advance, then that's what you call
a
spin.
big Russian advance.
That is what's called spin. You can't de-emphasize the truth, and you emphasize something maybe not as significant that you want to kind of highlight in order to misdirect the audience away from your failure. Our units will be relocated to that area soon, and we will see what happens. So he's not even like super hopeful in the way he says that. Meanwhile, Russian artillery has crept deeper into Sumy, putting more towns and villages at risk. During half the year, Ukraine held territory in Russia's Kursk region. Soldiers who fought there said they assumed the military would be preparing strong defense positions in the Ukrainian side. Instead, after a chaotic and costly retreat from Kursk, they found outdated trenches with no overhead cover from drones. The soldiers are now digging their own positions under drone fire in some cases.
Oh, no, you have to dig your own position?
That's right. That's right. So that was according to a Russian source, I believe. Ukrainians also complained that the areas that the Russians are now advancing across weren't mined. It's like they were prepared. It's like they were prepared for tank columns, not a battlefield where dozens of drones strike daily. One infantry commander who fought in Kursk and is now fighting in Sumy. Every single day a position isn't ready is a day somebody might not come back. So what you're hearing there is, real talk from a guy who's actually on the ground and, and sees the potential weakness of the Ukrainian side. Just kind of look. Yeah. Russians, by the way, that was that source on that was Rob Lee. He's been a great source for all things Ukraine. And the one thing I liked about him from the very beginning was that he was fairly, I don't know if you remember him, Joe, but he was fairly even-handed on almost all of his coverage. He looked for sources from both sides to actually get the picture.
Yeah.
Let's see. For the next 7 hours, they found themselves pinned in the trench as the Russians, who significantly outnumbered them, tried to surround them. It was the cruelest fight I've ever been in, said Mark, the Ukrainians team's 25-year-old platoon commander. They're attacking with infantry, drones, grenade launchers, machine guns, artillery, cluster munitions, everything. We never had more than a 5-minute break while they were regrouping. Mark said his team killed 5 Russians during the fight, which would often prompt a platoon to retreat. But he said the Russian troops were better trained than others and that he's come up against. They kept pushing forward to take the trench. Videos of the fight from the soldiers' helmet cameras, which were viewed by the Wall Street Journal, show the near constant barrage with gunfire sounding like popcorn. Mark calls on mortar strikes and frequently presses himself to the edge of the trench as he hears the whistle of artillery approaching. His team's machine gunner fired 5,500 rounds during the fight. That is no joke.
That's a legit fight.
Let's see what else Rob's got on this. See if he's got any more. Interesting. Russian Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov was arrested on suspicion of receiving a bribe. Either he didn't kick up enough, or he was actually so corrupt that they couldn't stand it. All right, let's move on. Let's see. In Kharkiv, just to kind of go around the horn on what's happening in Ukraine. Kharkiv, Russian forces continued offensive operations in northern Kharkiv Oblast on June 29th, but did not make confirmed advances. Luhansk, Russian troops continued to try to advance toward Borova, Kupiansk, and Lyman, but did not gain any new territory. Donetsk, Russian forces continued offensive operations near Pokrovsk, Siversk, and Toretsk, but did not make any confirmed advances. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces recently advanced the Chasiv Yar direction. That area's been a real back and forth for several months now. Zaporizhia continued offensive operations in western Zaporizhia Oblast with small advances. Neither Ukrainian nor Russian sources reported any ground activity in Kherson on June 29th. There was another F-16 pilot killed. Let's see. Overnight, Sunday, Russia launched the largest aerial attack of the war, firing 477 drones and 60 missiles, according to Ukrainian Air Force, adding that of these, 249 were shot down and 226 were lost, likely having been electrically jammed. At least 10 people on the ground were killed. In addition, a Ukrainian F-16 pilot was killed defending against the onslaught. He's the fourth F-16 pilot to be killed. I don't know if it's in the air or what, but so anyway, yeah. So there's your update on all things Ukrainian and Russia. The home front has been rough on the American domestic home front has been rough on Ukraine. In the meantime, U.S. pauses some munitions shipments to Ukraine, including air defense missiles. Senior White House official says the Trump administration is pausing weapon shipments to Ukraine following a review of military spending and the American support of foreign countries. A senior White House official said.
You okay? Man, Scott's dying over here.
I think Watcher got me sick.
Oh no!
All right, it's like a dry spot in my throat. It just made me start coughing all of a sudden. All right, SecDef Pete Hegseth signed off on the review, which the official noted had been underway for months. It was not immediately clear if the military support provided to other countries would be affected. White House Deputy Press Secretary Ann Kelly said the decision was made to put America's interests first. Shocking, Joe.
Incredibly.
Of course, Russia welcomed the decision, claiming without providing any evidence that made because the U.S. did not have enough weapons. Well, that's probably true. As far as we understand, the reason for this is from Russia. For understanding the reason for the decision was empty warehouses, lack of these weapons in warehouses. But in any case, the fewer weapons are supplied to Ukraine, the closer to the end of special military operation. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters in a phone call. The decision to halt some weapons transfer to Ukraine comes after Vladimir Zelensky pleaded with Western allies to bolster its aerial defenses after intensifying Russian airborne attacks. I can't imagine it has anything to do with us just spamming off like a ton of Patriot interceptors in over Qatar and maybe a recalculus of how many missiles it takes to shoot down each incoming TBM.
Right.
Russia has in recent weeks launched nightly attacks in Ukraine involving hundreds of drones and missiles. On Sunday, the Ukrainian pilot was killed after his F-16 crashed during a Russian aerial assault. Hold on a second. Random PNW guy 84 for $10 in Rumble chat says, if they're moving forward and finding less prepared positions and no mines, this could be a sign that Russians could be advancing beyond the defensive line and soon be able to have a breakout. Yeah, so that is exactly what that says to me. Joe, like, we didn't really talk about this at the moment, but earlier in my report, I said that the Ukrainians or the Russians were surprised to find no overhead cover on trenches, a lack of anti-tank mines, and other kind of prepared defenses you would expect in some sort of a defense in depth. What's your take on that? I think it's just a resource and manning issue, if I'm honest.
I think it's a where they are issue, right? So I don't think Ukraine felt they needed to expend resources in that area, in the Kharkiv area. They felt they had to spend those resources down along Zaporizhia and the southern line of contact. They didn't really expect to have to face Russians coming across the border again in the north, kind of that northeast sector. So I think that, yes, there's a chance for a Russian breakout there because the Ukrainians spent everything they had defending down in the Donbass.
You got to be kidding me. All right, I don't want to talk about that.
That really impacts my life exactly zero, so I don't really care.
I don't like it, but you're right about that. The personal impact is zero. Otherwise, other than tell me powerful people have a lot of sway. Big shock there. In Europe, in April, Europe surpassed the U.S. in total military aid to Ukraine for the first time, with its contributing around $84.9 billion compared to the United States $76.6 billion, according to data from the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, a German think tank that closely tracks wartime aid to Ukraine. The shift came after Trump halted all shipments of military aid to Ukraine following a heated Oval Office argument with Zelensky in March. Trump resumed aid flows to Ukraine about 1 week later. Last week during the NATO summit in The Hague, the U.S. President Trump suggested Kiev may see future Patriot missile system deliveries from the U.S., signaling a possible shift in his thinking about U.S. aid flows to Kiev. Patriots are widely considered amongst the best air defense systems, particularly in protecting against advanced hypersonic and ballistic missiles. That just goes to show you how hard it is to defend against ballistic missiles. I mean, I think doctrine says that, it's 2-1 for interceptors to inbound TBM. And yeah, our Patriots did awesome in Qatar, but ultimately had to shoot off a lot of missiles to do it, to guarantee that success. Let's see. I thought this was interesting, Joe. This is recent, so might as well kind of remind the folks. I get it. A lot of people have a positive emotional connection to Ukraine because they see them as the good guys and the Russians the bad guys. I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And let me be honest: the civilians caught in the middle of things in Ukraine are the ultimate victims of this whole thing. That being said, we get a good example in this video of who the good guys and who the bad guys in Ukraine are. Off to the trenches with you. This is sadly to say, Joe, this is a pretty common sight in Ukraine. The press gangs basically going that. Now, the one thing I don't know is this a guy who gets a draft notice and then ignores it and they find him on the street and drag him off? Or is this just a guy? They said, hey, we need a guy. Let's get that guy.
So if you remember back in history, we looked at this as an abomination when it happened, when we talk about it in school now. But the press gangs of the Royal Navy, right?
Right.
They would hit a port. They'd be like, well, we lost 5 guys in that last engagement. Let's everyone grab a stick and go grab 5 dudes off the street, put them on the ship and sail out in the morning. That's what this is, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, this is just Andre for $2 says installing my new flagpole. Thanks for being here, Andre. Yeah, I mean, this is just evil. I mean, there's got to be a better way to do this, especially if you want to establish your kind of credibility as the rightful, system of governance over that area. Let's see. I've got 2 more kind of regional stories to kind of hit on. Both of them are pretty interesting and may bode for interesting future developments. The first one is Russia urges Azerbaijan to repair ties with Moscow amidst diplomatic crisis. Joe, have you been tracking this kind of the tension that's been building between Azerbaijan and Russia in recent weeks and months?
I have no, but I did see that there was the Iranians mentioned something about this too. So,
I feel, one thing that we definitely miss out on with Stan not able to make it like he used to be able to is, he always had a really good insight into the whole GATT region, the whole Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey region. I mean, he definitely had his opinions on that for sure, but it's been interesting that, I'm not reminded of this region as often as I used to be when he was here.
And the importance of it, yes.
Yeah, and we are all the poorer for it. Let's see. The diplomatic row began last week after 2 ethnic Azerbaijanis died during police raids in Russia and escalated after Baku then arrested 2 Russian state journalists and a further roughly 15 more Russians on suspicion of drug trafficking and cybercrime. Azerbaijan says postmortems conducted in Baku on the 2 men who died in Russia showed they were beaten to death, though Moscow said one of them had died from heart problems, and the authorities in Baku had opened their own investigation. Now, let's be honest. The authorities in Baku claiming somebody in Russia died of a beating is rich, Joe. I mean, these are 2 countries that absolutely beat the crap out of people in order to get information from them.
Yeah, and this is not something new between these 2 countries, and the animosity runs deep. That's deep lore.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Relations have been under strain since late last year when 38 people were killed after an Azerbaijani airliner headed from Baku to southern Russia crashed. Baku says the crash was a result of accidental damage caused by fire from air defense units in Russia. It seems unlikely, but let's see. Nimat Avazov, the head of Baku's investigation into the incident, told reporters on Wednesday his team would release findings in the coming days. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zarakova
I'm gonna have to
Zakharova.
talk to her to get more details.
I know, right? She's all right. Said on Wednesday that Moscow has been cultivating its relationship with Bakhmut for many years based on mutual respect, and suggested unknown actors were now trying to use the situation to warm up their hands, a Russian phrase meaning to enrich oneself. Don't let them get burned just because of us. The two people's friendship relations are extremely important, and for those who want to spoil them should think very carefully for what they're doing. Now, that makes sense to me. If I wanted to cause trouble in the region, putting daylight between Azerbaijan and Russia would be high on my list of things to do.
Yeah.
But so would putting daylight between the Armenians and the Russians, of which Russia has been a traditional ally to the Armenians in recent years. All right. And this last one is more of a kind of like, makes you think. If I can get there we go. Get the link to open. There we go. These are the kind of posts that I see that. I see these posts and I think, what else is going on?
I don't know. There's much else going on now. Zastava. Oh, this is sad to me.
All right, this is a post from Zastava Arms USA. Dear Zastava community, we've been waiting official word regarding recent developments out of Serbia, and today we received confirmation. All firearms exports from Serbia have been halted until further notice. This includes a shipment of ours that was ready for air transport, which has now been blocked from departure by Serbian authorities. We understand how disappointing and frustrating this news is, and we want you to know we're doing everything in our power to keep the public informed and to find a resolution. Your support means everything to us during this uncertain time. We'll continue to share updates as they become available. Joe.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I reckon the parts are going to suck for a while. But I'm not sure what's going on. I think Serbia sees trouble around the corner. But I don't know the specific reason why they banned these arms from leaving.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish I had one of these right here. Yeah.
But it's not just Java. It's all weapons and military equipment manufactured in the country. He says that they need to ensure. Here's a statement from Vucic stating that he needs to ensure defense industry products would be used solely for the needs of the Serbian military. Any future exports require the consent of their National Security Council. They put out a ban because they've been accused of selling weapons to Ukraine and Israel.
Well, I mean, this is most likely probably a short-term type of thing, just to kind of.
Well, there's a lot of pressure put on them by Russia, and Serbia maintains a pretty tight relationship with Russia. And Russia says that Zastavas are showing up on the lines in Ukraine.
Mm. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I've seen Zastava in Ukraine.
You've been picking up a lot of rifles on the front line in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, just the pictures that I've seen, Yeah. In fact, I don't know that I've seen any pictures of Zastava. I mean, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting that because there's I think there's there's a Twitter account that's dedicated literally to showing all the weapons that people are finding in Ukraine, and there's been an interesting eclectic mix of stuff, to include a lot of NATO weapons.
Interesting.
Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth, though. Oh my God. I mean, talk about the Serbian drip.
If anyone could tell me what movie that's from, you get a bonus, because I know.
That's right. That's the one with Owen Wilson, right?
It is. It's from behind enemy lines. Yes. He's wearing peak Eastern European drip right there.
Oh yeah, 100%. So anyway, that's the show for today, gents. 2 hours, 1 minute. Me and Joe know how to do it right on time.
Yep.
Peak trap suit. Joe, what do you got for the people looking towards the end of the week?
Well, in the immediate future, good boy Thor is getting a haircut today, so that's always a good thing. So he'll be looking good for all the events coming up in July. I think that I would watch for more information to come out on the mysteriousness and incredible oddity of the shooting in Idaho. And I would expect to see more of that kind of stuff, more of the actual insurgent things going on throughout America. If you notice, when that shooting was happening, the left immediately went on to tell you all about the checkered history of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the order, and the Aryan nations, none of which had a thing at all to do with the shooting. But they wanted you to think it did. And they're going to continue to paint that picture, even though I've seen lots of photos of the kid in Satanist clothing and associating with Satanist people. So, and being a furry. So it's kind of interesting. But I would look for a lot more of that to happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Joe. I mean, it's the furry thing is the thing that I picked up on. This guy is absolutely not one of ours. That's the good news. You know, the furry kind of keeps him from being the case. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what much more comes out of this. Did they ever confirm that it was self-inflicted?
They have not yet.
Yeah.
I doubt it, because in the middle of combat like that, he probably caught a round, because it was intense gunplay going on for a while.
And all it takes is for them, once they figure out where he's at, you know, you put about like 5 or 6 guys on that one spot. I mean, he probably didn't have good cover. He probably doesn't have really good field craft.
Yeah, because if he had good field craft, he'd have extended and gotten away, rather than staying to die.
Well, yeah, you shoot like once or twice from one area, then you move, right? And then so that way you're never doing more than about 5 or 6 rounds from one spot.
Correct. Raging Psychosis, it's confirmed that he had a shotgun and slugs with him. It is not confirmed that that's the weapon that he killed anyone with.
That would be really interesting if he did that work with I would assume that would probably put him with some sort of a hunting background.
Or that's the gun he had access to. Doesn't mean that he hunted. But the thing is that the 2 guys who died were hit at short range after having a conversation with him. And that definitely would bear out a shotgun.
Shotgun, yeah.
But we don't know about the rest, so...
By the way, I missed this. Phil Coggins, a member for 34 months. Thank you, brother. Too bad Watcher is missing out on the classic Scott map segment. That's what happens. You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, the Arctic boy, I agree with you completely. I'm not even sure that kid is the shooter, let alone the only shooter.
Yeah. And yeah, you guys were very quick on this one with the destruction of the evidence because of the fire.
Yeah, there's no way to put it either way.
Yeah,
and
it
being
really
in a rural area, finding shell casings might not mean anything, right?
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if something ever happened on this property, you're going to find shell casings literally everywhere. So, and a lot of properties in the Mountain West, right? Especially national forest land and all of that.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Anything else for folks to look at?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. For me, the thing I have for you to look at is that we will have more future conflict later this week. The CFC will be back on Friday. I predict. That's my prediction. But I may be wrong because it is 4th of July, and if Watcher and Joe are not available, and I am not available, then there will be no show. We will try to put that out at least 24 hours in advance. So look for sometime on Thursday for an announcement on that. All right, Joe, thank you. If you haven't done it already, please, by the way, the likes on both videos today are kind of in the tank. So if you would just pause before you click the button to get rid of the show, hit the like button first. It's free. If you haven't subscribed, do that too. And tell people that you're getting good stuff from the Council on Future Conflict. We will be back for the next show. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chad. And as always, stay safe.